Hello students, I warmly welcome you all to yet another session of our course 1000 plus previous year questions which will be related to your UGC-NET Paper 2 English Literature. In this particular class, we are going to solve questions from British literature, so on and so forth. The topics we have already talked about and discussed which are supposed to be covered by me. So in the previous 3 videos after the orientation, आप लोग ने देखा होगा that how things are moving forward, how we are trying to analyze each and every question with the options given below. Right. So without wasting any further time, let's just begin with the first question for today. That goes like, there are helpers and harmers among the fellow pilgrims in Christian's journey in a pilgrim's progress. Who among the following is not a helper is your first question. इनमें से कौन सा जो है वो helper नहीं होता? The right answer is option A. Mr. Worldly Wise Man is not a helper in the work Pilgrim's Progress. Now when we try to talk about the details related to Pilgrim's Progress, कुछ चीजें related to that important hai. Who is the writer and what is the full title of the work here? The full title of the work goes like, The Pilgrim's Progress from this world to that which is to come, to that which is to come. This is the entire title. This is the full title of the work that you see by the name shortly as The Pilgrim's Progress, right? So, किसने लिखा था ये work? If we get to see, this was published in the year 1678. 1678 में it was written by John Bunyan. John Bunyan was one such writer जिन्होंने इस work को लिखा था, right? We get to see that yes, of course, the other characters are there. These are the helpers, of course, then because उन्होंने harmer पूछा है कि इनमें से फिर helper कौन सा नहीं. It eventually means that Goodwill is a helper, interpreter, and the evangelist. These three characters in the work, The Pilgrim's Progress, is a helper. Basically, are helpers. Basically, we get to see that all these people, all these things, etc., they are personified in this particular allegorical work. So isko hum isko, how do we identify it? What do we call it? This is a Christian allegory where all the vices and virtues, etc., उनको personified नाम दिया हुआ है. Goodwill, ठीक है, interpreter, evangelist, all these characters in the work, they are trying to tell Christian how to lead a true Christian life, right? So option A is the right answer. Next question. Adherents of the 14th century religious movement associated with vernacular preaching, translation of the New Testament into English, and the challenges to the authority of priests and bishops were known as Lollards. Lollards were the followers of Sir John Wycliffe, who is these were the followers of Sir John Wycliffe. Now, who was Wycliffe and what is he attributed with? Wycliffe is attributed with translating the Bible into English 14th century में, ठीक है, 1381 के आसपास में आपको देखने के लिए मिलता है, ठीक है. Now what will happen, and these were the people who were preaching कि vernacular में preach होनी चाहिए, translation of the New Testament into English, and challenges to the authorities of priests and bishops. What priests and bishops? Priests and bishops who were Roman Catholics. Now remember, if you guys would have done the entire thing with me in the course, आप लोग ने देखा होगा main वाले course में, and if not, if you guys would have read the history of English literature, you might have come across this particular point wherein we get to see that yes, of course, these were the people. अब हम अगर ब्रिटेन के रिलीजन की बात करते हैं, बिकॉज ऑफ द फैक्ट दैट रोम ड्यूरिंग 400 समथिंग, रोम ने जो था ब्रिटेन के ऊपर रूल करा था, एंड विद रोम Rome was associated with the religion which was known as Christianity. Christianity to the other parts of the world has gone from Roman Empire, right? Augustus हो गए, Emperor Augustus हो गए, so on and so forth. So when Rome जो था उन्होंने when Roman Empire it also expanded and it also conquered Britain, it left its influence of the religion because England के लोग usually pagan होते थे. अगर आपको आपने सुना होगा नाम वाइकिंग्स सुना होगा, if you guys would have watched the series Netflix series Vikings, so you guys would have come across this particular point wherein you guys would have seen कि हाँ जी वाइकिंग्स वगैरह जो होते थे जो ब्रिटेन के वहीं की ट्राइब्स होती थी एंड स्कैंडिनेविया से आते थे, इधर उधर से आते थे, एंड इवन द पीपल इन ब्रिटेन they did not follow any sort of religion. They were the ones who were much and more inclined towards worshipping the nature. So जब रोमन एम्पायर ने इंटायरली ब्रिटेन के ऊपर कंकर कर लिया था इन 5th 4th सेंचुरी, 4th 5th सेंचुरी, उस point of time पे when they left from England, the influence of the religion, because people were already converted to Christianity, so the religion remained there, right? लोगों ने Christianity को अपनाना शुरू कर दिया था. Now with that, बहुत सारी चीजें हुई in the upcoming time, especially in the 14th century when Chaucer was also writing, and Chaucer was also through his work Canterbury Tales trying to expose the vices of the people, expose कि हाँ जी society में पार्डनर का काम ये है लेकिन वो कर कुछ रहा है, फ्रायर का काम ये है बट ही इज डूइंग समथिंग एल्स, मंक needs to be celibate away from all the materialistic pleasures, but what is he doing? He loves hunting, he wants to go riding horses, he loves riding horses and hunting, right? So people were there, especially if we try to talk about the clergy class, if we try to talk about the pope, the bishops, etc. ये सब लोग बड़े करप्ट हो चुके थे इवन ड्यूरिंग द टाइम ऑफ चौसर. चौसर वॉज फ्रॉम अ प्रिविलेज्ड बैकग्राउंड, बट हियर इन क्या होना शुरू हो गया दैट यस ऑफ कोर्स पीपल वर आल्सो, बिकॉज जैसे इंडिया में ऐसा था, ट्राई टू ड्रॉ पैरेलल ऑफ दिस विद इंडियन कास्ट सिस्टम अलोंग विद द ब्रिटिश. ब्रिटेन में 3 स्टेट्स में डिवाइडेड होती थी चीजें, यहाँ पे ब्राह्मण, क्षत्रिय, वैश्य, शूद्र. And the Brahmins were the ones who had access to all the religious scriptures which were mostly written in the language Sanskrit. Now come back to England. Come back to England and see that in England, Roman Empire के बाद जब Christianity फैली, all the religious scriptures which were written, they were in Latin. Latin language में ये थे, इधर हमारा संस्कृत था. Upper authorities, popes, priests, etc. पंडित. Now Brahmins were also having this sense of authority that yes, of course, we know the language of the scriptures which the other people don't. Same was the case with the Pope here, Pope and the clergy. That yes, of course, I know the language in which the Bible has been written, so I am the person who is very much authoritative. हमारे ऊपर सारी authority आती है, king भी हमसे पूछेगा, तो king से ऊपर रखा जाता था clergymen को, ठीक है? The Pope and the churchmen were considered far more superior than the king itself, so king had to ask for the counsel and advice from the pope and everything, ठीक है? क्योंकि जो भी पैसे चाहिए होते थे pilgrimages से आते थे, रोमन कैथोलिक लोगों को मिल जाते थे पैसे, so these were the people who used to take that particular और इन्होंने ज्यादा पिलग्रिमेजेस से पैसे मांगने शुरू कर दिए, इन लोगों के ऊपर इन्होंने पिलग्रिमेजेस के ऊपर वो लगाने शुरू कर दिए, टैक्सेस लगाने शुरू कर दिए. इस वे में करप्ट हो रही थी चर्च. द पहनावा ऑफ द पोप एंड द चर्च, द क्लर्जी मैन दैट यूज्ड टू बी सो मच एम्बेलिश्ड, अच्छे अच्छे हीरे जवाहरात जड़े होते थे उनके कपड़ों वपड़ों में, उनके मुकुट वुकुट में, राइट? सो पीपल, religious people were getting corrupted. Now this thing was being noticed around the world, especially in Britain. ये चीज देखी जा रही थी. अगर ब्रिटेन में, अगर हम ब्रिटेन की बात कर रहे हैं, that's why the lollards की मैं बात करने के लिए आ रही हूँ, because this background is required for you all to understand the analysis of the question. So basically these were the people. अब John Wycliffe, remember एक चीज in the main class as well, I told you that Chaucer जो है उन्होंने, what we speak in English today is indebted to how Chaucer made the usage of English language. Beowulf हो गई, इनकी लैंग्वेज हमें नहीं आती है, समझ नहीं आएगी, ठीक है? But what we get to see here is that yes, of course, lots and lots of this thing हमको देखने के लिए मिलता है कि पोप वगैरह जो थे ये कर रहे थे. एंड इंग्लिश का मैं बात कर रही थी. इंग्लिश वॉज नॉट अ लैंग्वेज ऑफ द अपर क्लास एवर. English was the language of the common people. And with the common people speaking English, वो ऐसा माना जाता था कि oh my god ये English बोल रहा है, हम तो बड़ी क्लास से हैं, we are going to speak and talk in Latin because we know the Latin scriptures, Bible and everything, right? So when Chaucer standardized English as well ना, वो Chaucer के time पे ही the Bible got translated into English by John Wycliffe. And with him translating it, lots and lots of things happened. The churchmen, the pope, the clergy, they were against him कि ये कैसे कर दिया तुमने, ठीक है? तो बहुत सारे repercussions भी हुए थे. Now coming back again to the English language and everything that I'm trying to tell you here, कि एक चीज होती थी कि इंग्लिश में भी लोगों ने थोड़ा सा डिस्टिंक्शन, क्लास डिस्टिंक्शन दिखाने के लिए the upper class people when they got access to English कि हाँ जी अब English बोलनी start कर देते हैं या जो भी reasons की वजह से they started talking in English, they were having a certain sort of accent associated and attached with them so that जो बाहर वाला कोई इंसान अगर उनको देखे they can totally make sure that yes of course this person is speaking English like blah, 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 right, with some sort of accent, that's why this person is from the higher class. और दूसरा इंसान lower class से जो normal English बोलता होगा वो normal class से था. तो लोगों ने ऐसा डिस्टिंक्शन भी बनाना शुरू कर दिया था. सो इंग्लिश इवेंचुअली फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वाज द लैंग्वेज ऑफ द कॉमन मासेस, द कॉमन पीपल एंड नॉट द लैंग्वेज ऑफ द क्लर्जी मैन ऑफ द अपर क्लासेस. ठीक है. सो ये लॉलार्ड जो थे आफ्टर दे वर द फॉलोअर्स ऑफ सर जॉन वाइक्लिफ. नाउ वाइक्लिफ ट्रांसलेटेड द बाइबल इनटू इंग्लिश. ट्रांसलेट करने से क्या हुआ? इट वाज मेड अवेलेबल, द स्क्रिप्चर्स एंड एवरीथिंग वाज मेड अवेलेबल टू द पीपल, to the common masses who were speaking English, right? So this thing was a protest sort of a thing that he did, right? Because he could see the corruption being done by the Pope and the clergymen, right? Now Lollards were the followers of Sir John Wycliffe who were saying that vernacular यहाँ पे क्या मतलब है, क्योंकि English vernacular थी उस point of time पे, ठीक है? So English language should be used, etc., right? And they challenged the authority of priests and bishops who were believing in the which religion? In Roman Catholic religion, right? So option C is the right answer to this question. Next up, the title of Dylan Thomas's Deaths and Entrances was taken from John Donne's work Death's Duel. John Donne's work Death's Duel, and I'll read the line from here. Our very birth and entrance into this life is an issue from death. And deaths and entrances का title. If we try to talk about Dylan Thomas, an important poet, an important writer, right? Let's take a look at the other important points here. 1946 में this particular collection came. Deaths and entrances came in the year 1946, and it's a volume of poetry where most of the poem dealt with World War II. ये सारी की सारी poems जो थी इसमें World War II की जो है setting, या मतलब आप setting भी नहीं कह सकते, it deals with the loss and hopelessness that was surrounding the people during the World War II. ठीक है? And this is what we see when it is John Donne की poem Death's Duel से ये particular lines जो हैं they have been taken from here. ठीक है? And Death's Duel, moreover time अगर हम देखते हैं जॉन डन का एक sermon था, it was a sermon, उन्होंने preach करा था. Coming to the other options that we all are supposed to deal with, our deathbed जो है, our deathbed is by Rudyard Kipling. It's a poem, right? It's a poem written in 1919 में publish करी गई थी in the collection The Years Between. The Years Between. ठीक है? Then we have Murder in the Cathedral. In the last class as well, we have discussed to do the right deed for the wrong reason, right? This was the fourth temptation to which Saint Thomas Becket gave in, right? So Murder in the Cathedral, it's a verse drama. It's a verse drama by T.S. Eliot, performed in the year 1935 and published as well in the year 1935. Okay? Then we have Macbeth. Macbeth, which is also known as the tragedy of Macbeth, as the full title goes, right? It was first performed in the year, this was first performed in the year 1606 में it was first performed, and it is said, it tries to talk about the sources. अगर हम मैकबेथ, विलियम शेक्सपियर के मैकबेथ की बात करते हैं, the sources for Macbeth include Holinshed's Chronicle. Holinshed's, ये आपका नॉन फिक्शनल में वर्क में आ जाता है, Holinshed's Chronicles, ठीक है, वहां से लिया गया है, राइट 1587 में लिखे गए थे हॉलिनशेड के क्रॉनिकल्स, वहां से ही हैज टेकन दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग. ऑल्सो इट इज सेड दैट दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क इज नोन एज द स्कॉटिश प्ले. जब इसको प्ले को परफॉर्म किया जाता है तो मैकबेथ नाम नहीं लिया जाता, द स्कॉटिश प्ले बोला जाता है, बिकॉज इट इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी कर्स्ड. कि अगर मैकबेथ बोलेंगे वी आर गोइंग टू परफॉर्म द प्ले मैकबेथ, सो सम बैड thing happens, ठीक है, by the prickling of my thumb something wicked this way comes, right? So these are some important lines which are uttered by the three witches, ठीक है, उनके बारे में बोलेगी. ऑल्सो एक मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज मैकबेथ के साथ ही रिलेटेड, दैट मैकबेथ वाज वन सच वर्क, इफ वी ट्राई टू टॉक अबाउट, इट वाज अडेप्टेड इनटू अ हिंदी मूवी मकबूल. मकबूल नाम की मूवी में, एक बॉलीवुड मूवी में इट वाज अडेप्टेड, a Bollywood movie. It was a Bollywood movie which was an adaptation of Macbeth. ठीक है. Omkar is an adaptation. Omkara is an adaptation of Othello. Makbul is Macbeth की. Then we have Heather is an adaptation of Hamlet. ठीक है, ये तीन ही याद है अभी मेरे को. So these are the three ones. Especially ये विशाल भारद्वाज ने I think डायरेक्ट करी हैं ये मूवीज, ठीक है. Next up, let's move forward. Let's move forward to the next question. It was the first narrative of the life of a black woman slave to be published in England in one. This is something else. In England, it has a profound influence on the abolition movement in Britain. Identify the book and its author. The right answer to this question is option A, Mary Princess, The History of Mary Prince. So already the things have been given कि एक black woman slave का publish हुआ था इंग्लैंड में, this particular work, ठीक है, and abolition movement. Now remember, slavery abolition act around 1830s के कुछ years में पास हुआ था. During slave trade act भी इन्हीं टाइम के आसपास पास हुआ था. What happened was that slaves were being traded from different parts of the world, Africa को भी क्योंकि Britain colonized, and India as well, and the other parts of the world as well. So people from different parts of the globes were taken up as slaves and being brought up brought up in Britain. ठीक है, तो जब वो लेके आते थे वहां पे they were supposed to do माइनर से माइनर, छोटे से छोटा काम उनसे करवाया जाता था, so on and so forth. This is what we see here, right? So she was an abolitionist autobiographer. इनके वर्क को हमको देखने के लिए मिलता है, ठीक है. So the history of Mary Prince is the right answer to this question, ठीक है. And then we have incidents or in the life of a slave girl by Harriet Jacobs. Harriet Jacobs. This was published in the year 1861. 1861. ठीक है, 1861 by L. Maria Child. ठीक है, ठीक है. She was a fugitive, भाग गई थी ये slave, ठीक है. Then we have Mattie Jan Jackson, African American थी ये. She was an African American. And this is the work that we see. This was the story of life of Mattie Jane Jackson. 1866 में this got published, ठीक है. 18 years तक ये slave रही थी, 18 साल तक she was a slave. Then we have Elizabeth, Memoir of Old Elizabeth, a colored woman, ठीक है. This is a story about a woman who was freed and then became a preacher. उपदेश देने वाली बन गई थी, ठीक है। दैट्स इट। That's it. Moving on to the next question. What is peculiar about the reference in the following lines in some poets' names in the plural? It's a freezing bleak day in January and I'm looking for poetry. I see a few Chaucers, a few Shakespeares and a hardcover $3 history of modern poetry published in the year 1987. तो इसमें जो वो पूछ रहे हैं कि ये जो ऑथर्स को या पोएट्स को इन्होंने प्लूरल्स में दिखाया है, व्हाट डज दैट पर्टिकुलरली मीन? यू हैव दैट टर्म. The right answer to this question is synecdochic use names for their respective works. Now when we talk about synecdoche का मतलब होता है when a part is made to represent a whole. A part is made to represent a whole. जैसे कि इसका मतलब ये सिनिक डकी बोलते हैं in the literary terms का sphere. Let's just say if we say hands of what? Hands of people, hands of laborers, hands of students. ठीक है, तो hands वर्ड हो गया. यहाँ पे चॉसर्स बोला जा रहा है, शेक्सपियर्स बोला जा रहा है. इट डज नॉट मीन कि कितने सारे चॉसर्स और कितने सारे शेक्सपियर्स. इट मीन्स दैट आई सी अ फ्यू पीपल हु राइट लाइक चॉसर, अ फ्यू पीपल हु राइट लाइक शेक्सपियर. ठीक है, दैट मीन्स द सिनेक्डाकिक यूज, दैट इज नेम्स फॉर देयर रिस्पेक्टिव वर्क्स. स्टैंडर्ड रेफरेंस नो, कोई यूज नहीं करा. अनयूजुअल ऑकवर्ड मेटाफर्स नो. Usually refer to biographies of the poets in question? No. Option D is the right answer to this question. Next we have the works of D.H. Lawrence. And इनको हमने जो तब मैंने आपको I gave you a trick to remember the works of Lawrence. If उस वर्क के साथ भी कर लोगे तो आप easily solve कर लेते ये question. But it is more like related to characters. अगर years आते तो years के साथ भी आप लोग कर लेते. But it is a question more likely related with the characters that you all are supposed to match with regards to the works written by D.H. Lawrence. The right answer is option B here. A is to 3 and then we have B is to 4, Richard Saunders. C is to 1, Rupert Birkin, and D is to the rainbow is to Lydia Lenski. These are the characters that we see in the works written by D.H. Lawrence. अच्छा, बात करते हैं Sons and Lovers में Miriam Livers की. If you remember, I told you a little bit story about Sons and Lovers, that how Paul Morrell belongs to a family of miners, and Sons and Lovers is somewhere or the other having some autobiographical elements, because D.H. Lawrence was also one such writer जो कि मतलब माइनर्स की फैमिली, कोयले की खदान छानने वालों की फैमिली में से थे. ठीक है, सो ही इज ऑल्सो वन सच पर्सन दैट वी सी. मीरियम इज समबडी who is the love interest of Paul Morrell, but at a platonic level. He does not connect to her for the sexual part. For the sexual part, he has Clara. ठीक है, Clara है. Then we have Kangaroo. Kangaroo में we have Richard Saunders है. Richard Saunders जो है, he is an independent British essayist in the work. ठीक है. Then we have Women in Love. Women in Love में we have Rupert Birkin. School inspector है, ठीक है, and having a relationship with Ursula. And then we have Rainbow में we have Lydia Lenski. ठीक है, she is this is a particular novel which tries to deal with the generations of the Brangwen sisters, Ursula and there's this one name I am unable to recall from G. ठीक है, Gudrun. ठीक है, so these are the right answers. Now coming to the other details that we all were supposed to note down, Sons and Lovers के साथ साथ में बाकी कुछ important Sons and Lovers was written in the year 1913, Kangaroo in the year 1923. ठीक है, Women in Love we have in 1920 and The Rainbow in the year 1915. Women in Love was a sequel to The Rainbow. ठीक है, Rainbow का sequel था. कुछ other important works written by Lawrence. ये novels मैं आपको लिखवा रही हूँ. Important works by D.H. Lawrence. The White Peacock. We have done the novels. Let's just leave the novels. But हाँ, Lady Chatterley's Lover के बारे में एक important fact लिख लीजिए. About Lady Chatterley's Lover, which was a novel written by D.H. Lawrence, 1928. An important fact to be noted down here was that Lawrence wrote a pamphlet. Lawrence wrote, because this was banned, na? Lawrence wrote a pamphlet to explain his novel Lady Chatterley's Lover. What was the name of the pamphlet? The name of the pamphlet goes like Apropos of Lady Chatterley's Lover. मैं LCL लिख रही हूँ, please पूरा लिख लीजिएगा. Lady Chatterley's Lover in the year 1929. In the year 1929. And there was this one more work which we have not penned down in the class, The Escaped Cock, written in the year 1929. Why am I making it you guys note down? Because it was republished as The Man Who Died. The Man Who Died. ठीक है. The Man Who Died. Some important short story collections as well. SS collections means short story collections written by Lawrence here, right? So we have The Prussian Officer, and other stories. 1914, क्योंकि ये पूछा गया इसलिए I'm making you guys note down only the important ones. ठीक है. England, My England, comma, (1922). The Rocking Horse Winner, बहुत beautiful story. The Rocking Horse Winner. इस short story को पढ़ सकते हो summary, तो do that. 1926. That's it. That's it. Next question we have is, which ancient writer's name is directly mentioned in Lord Byron's poem The Isles of Greece? अच्छा, The Isles of Greece के बारे में एक important बात ये है कि this is not a separate poem, but it is a song. It's a song in Don Juan, written by Byron, right? Written by Byron. Don Juan was written from the year 1819 to 24. And it was a work which was in 17 cantos. 17 cantos में लिखा हुआ ये work था properly. And we also get to see that if you remember, if you know about the Don Juanic character, आप लोग को पता होना चाहिए. Don Juan अगर किसी को refer किया जाता है, it means that he is one such sort of a man who uses women for the physical pleasure only, who wants to just have sex, wants to sleep with them, and that's it. But बायरन ने अपनी पोम डॉन जुआन में एक अलग इमेज पोर्ट्रे करी है ऑफ डॉन जुआन. ही सेज दैट डॉन जुआन जो है ही इज नॉट अ वुमनाइजर. लाइक बेसिकली इनकी जो इमेज बनती है डॉन जुआन की, रियल इमेज जो है अगर आपको देखा जाए रियल में इनको बोला जाता है दैट ही इज अ वुमनाइजर, बट इजिली यहाँ पे बायरन ने क्या रिप्रेजेंट करा है, बायरन रिप्रेजेंटेड डॉन जुआन एज इजिली seduced बाय women, तो इसमें भी औरत की गलती निकाल दी, he's a character who's easily seduced by women, right? So I'll just utter down the lines. The Isles of Greece, the Isles of Greece, where burning Sappho loved and sung. ठीक है, तो Sappho, a Greek writer, has been mentioned directly. Option D is the right answer. The other options अगर हम बात करते हैं, Aeschylus जो है, he is known as the father of tragedy. He is known popularly, he is known as the father of tragedy, Greek drama में. Then we have Sophocles and Euripides. Sophocles जो है, he was the contemporary of Aeschylus and best known for his play Oedipus Rex. Oedipus Rex की स्टोरी क्या है? Oedipus जो है, he is born to Jocasta and अपने father. I am not able to get the name right now. So when Oedipus is born, तो एक प्रोफेसी होती है दैट ही इज गोइंग टू बी द एंड ऑफ हिज ओन फादर, ही विल मेक हिज फादर, ही विल किल हिज ओन फादर. Now his mother Jocasta does not want that to happen. So what she instead says, मतलब उसके पापा को कह देती है that I will kill him. तो eventually she just gives it to a shepherd. किसी को दे देती है कि चलो कोई नहीं, दूर चला जाएगा, मैंने तो अनहोनी टाल दी ना, नहीं मारेगा ये. अब when Oedipus grows up, he thinks that he is the son of a shepherd because the shepherd जो है उन्होंने अपना बेटे की तरह पाला हुआ होता है. So what happens in the longer run, in the longer term here is that Oedipus जो है, he comes and he kills his own father because he grows up, I think he gets the वो उनका kingdom ले लेता है अपने father का आके unknowingly. He does not know that he is fighting against his real father, right? So after having the kingdom and everything under him, what he does is that he now also makes Jocasta his own wife. He makes his own mother his own wife, again unknowingly. उसको नहीं पता कि ये उसकी खुद की mother है, right? So when eventually through the course Oedipus Rex भी लिखा हुआ है, we have Oedipus the King करके tragedy है, Oedipus है ना, तो there are series कुछ लिखी गई Aeschylus द्वारा. So what we see that eventually when these things are जिसको एरिस्टोटल अपने उसमें बोलते हैं दैट वी सी इग्नोरेंस टू नॉलेज. एरिस्टोटल इसके लिए एक वर्ड यूज करते हैं, एरिस्टोटल एक वर्ड यूज करते हैं दैट इज नोन एज पेरिपेटाया एंड एनेग्नोरिसिस. एनेग्नोरिसिस करके वर्ड यूज करते हैं एरिस्टोटल. इसका मतलब क्या होता है? एनेग्नोरिसिस का मतलब होता है फ्रॉम इग्नोरेंस. मैं इसको ऐसे याद करती हूँ, एनेग्नोर, तो इग्नोरेंस to knowledge. So he cites the example of Oedipus. He says ये पोएटिक्स में बताते हैं, एनाग्नोरिसिस जब कॉइन करते हैं वो टर्म इन हिज वर्क पोएटिक्स. ही सेज दैट Oedipus जब उनको पता चला दैट यस ऑफ कोर्स ही इज स्लीपिंग विद हिज ओन मदर, ही हैज मैरिड हिज ओन मदर, ही वाज सो मच फिल्ड विद गिल्ट एंड रिडिक्यूल इन हिज ओन बीइंग दैट ही took the gold pins from his hair and पुट दोज, और उनको अपनी आंखों में डाल के अपनी आंखें बाहर निकाल दी थी, अपने आप को ब्लाइंड कर दिया था आउट ऑफ द गिल्ट दैट ही वाज हैविंग, राइट? सो इट्स अ स्टोरी अबाउट दैट. एंड यही Oedipus Rex में, तभी तो जब सन्स एंड लवर्स में इसका क्रॉस रेफरेंस Oedipus कॉम्प्लेक्स विच सिगमंड फ्रॉयड इन द साइकोएनालिटिक थ्योरी यूज करते हैं, वो ये कहते हैं कि जब एक लड़का जो है अपनी मदर के टुवर्ड्स अट्रैक्टेड होता है अननोइंगली, that is Oedipus complex. He wants to take the place of the father. He cannot under the fear of castration and something like that, right? So that is Oedipus Rex written by Sophocles. Then we have another one, that is Euripides. Euripides was the third of the three classical writers, tragedians, after, if we try to talk about Aeschylus and Sophocles. So he was also a tragedy writer, dramatist, writer, whatever you want to write. Okay? So option D is the right answer, Sappho. Next, one of the most flexible meters is a 5-foot line introduced by Chaucer in the 14th century. 5-foot line, we've already covered it in one of the previous questions again. 5 feet, pentameter. Option D is the right answer. Next, The fault of Cowley and perhaps all of the writers of the metaphysical race is that of pursuing his thoughts to their ramifications, by which he loses the grandeur of generality. For the greatest things the parts are little, and what is little can be but pretty, and by claiming dignity becomes ridiculous. Thus all the power of description is destroyed by a scrupulous enumeration, and the force of metaphors is lost when the mind, by the mention of particulars, is turned more upon the original than the secondary sense, more upon that from which the illustration is drawn than to that which is applied. What Dr. Johnson actually faults here, he says that the metaphysical poet जो हैं अपने उससे ही सॉन्टर अवे कर जाते हैं, भटक जाते हैं from what they are going to use as a metaphor in their poetry. So we are much more, हम original, हम metaphor के ऊपर चले जाते हैं rather than what they intended to mean etc. That is what is he trying to say. ठीक है, इस particular work में हमको देखने के लिए मिलता है. ठीक है, एंड ये टर्म उन्होंने कहा यूज करी थी. ही हैज रिटन लाइव्स ऑफ द मोस्ट एमिनेंट इंग्लिश पोएट्स. तो सैमुअल जॉनसन की ये जो लाइंस हैं, ये सारी लाइंस जो हैं, वी सी देम इन लाइफ ऑफ काउली, which is a section in that particular work he has written, lives of the most eminent English poets. ठीक है, so right answer is this one. Right, moving on to the next question. इसमें बाकी टर्न्स तो कुछ वही ही नहीं है. ठीक है, next up, who among the following exemplified the role of the peasant poet? Who were the peasant poets? We've already discussed that in the previous sections as well, right? Peasant poets were the ones who were much and more inclined towards writing some sort of poetry which depicted the rural side. ठीक है, जो रूरल साइड वगैरह को दिखाती थी, रूरल बैकग्राउंड से बिलोंग करते थे ये लोग. बट हमको ये भी पता है कि जॉन क्लेयर जो थे, उनको नहीं पसंद था कि कोई उनको क्या कहे, कोई उनको पेजेंट पोएट कहे. ठीक है, द राइट आंसर इज जॉन क्लेयर एंड रॉबर्ट बर्न्स. 1 and 4, ऑप्शन डी बिकम्स द राइट आंसर. ठीक है, कीट्स हम लोग को पता है, रोमांटिक एज में वी हैव डिस्कस्ड अबाउट हिम, राइट. रॉबर्ट बर्न्स को तो इवन प्लाउमैन पोएट भी बोला जाता है. इज नोन एज द, बिकॉज ये खुद हल वगैरह जोतते थे, प्लाउमैन पोएट भी बोला जाता था इनको, राइट, बिकॉज ऑफ द फैक्ट दैट दीज पीपल ग्रू अप इन रूरल sites with those kinds of background which provided the subject matter for their poetry. Option D is the right answer. Next question. Which interpretation of Keats's beauty is truth, truth beauty best represents the mimetic perspective? Mimetic क्या होता है? Mimetic is taken up by Aristotle जब वो एक theory of mimesis की बात करते हैं. Mimesis का मतलब, mimesis has been taken up as a concept from Aristotle, which means what? Which means imitation. Mimesis is imitation, right? So mimesis जो है कि क्या represent किया जा रहा है आपको, उन सब चीजों के बारे में बात होती है. The right answer to this question, the right answer to this question is option D here. A work of literature is beautiful in so far as it offers an accurate representation of its subject matter with fully realized characters and vivid description of events. When you talk about, when you know, when you read about Aristotle's poetic and the theory of mimesis that he has given, he talks about that how mimesis क्या होता है, imitation. अब let's just say you're watching a movie and in the movie the characters are so much so unrelatable to you. You are from a middle class background, आप मूवी देखने चले गए अमीरों वाली या कुछ ऐसे, मतलब जिसमें अमीर कैरेक्टर्स डिफाइन करे गए हैं, you will be very less likely to relate your own self to that particular movie. You won't be related to that. ज़्यादा नहीं आप समझ पाओगे, आप अपने आप को resonate नहीं कर पाओगे with the characters. He says beauty is truth, truth beauty कि ब्यूटीफुल कोई भी वर्क ऑफ लिटरेचर होता है तभी व्हेन इट हैज एक्यूरेट रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ इट्स सब्जेक्ट मैटर, जो भी दर्शाया जा रहा है। कैरेक्टर्स जो हैं फुल्ली रियलाइज हैं, रेजोनेट रिलेटेबल कैरेक्टर्स हैं, एंड विविड डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ इवेंट्स, द इवेंट्स आर आल्सो विविडली बीइंग डिस्क्राइब्ड इन अ डिस्क्रिप्टिव मैनर। ठीक है, line is an ironic quotation? No, it's not an ironic quotation कि beauty truth है, all we know and yet you need to know, है ना. Reality is an illusory concept? No, he does not talk about that. Those aspects of reality which we perceive to be beautiful are only worthy subject matter of the artist, and it is the artist's job to observe closely and isolate those sublime elements from the flux of the mundane. No, क्यों flux of the mundane से बचाना है? अगर आप अच्छे से अच्छे, there are certain things which are very beautifully described by different sorts of poets, etc. Why do you not let it explained in your piece of poetry? That is not at all a right option. Chaotic impressions of reality constitutes the only truth with the arbitrary imposition of order? No, कोई जरूरत ही नहीं order की. ठीक है, next question. By the way, with regards to the question, ये line आती कहाँ है? Beauty is truth, truth is beauty. ये line occur कहाँ करती है? This occurs in Ode on a Grecian urn, written by John Keats. ठीक है, then we move forward. Next question. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, dash in this petty face from day to day to the last of recorded time. All our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. ठीक है, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The right answer, कैसे blanks fill करते हैं? First creeps, syllable, creeps, syllable, that struts and frets and heard no more. Making option B as the right answer, where the lines have been taken from. The lines have been taken from William Shakespeare's play Macbeth. ये lines कहाँ से ली गई हैं? शेक्सपियर के प्ले मैकबेथ से ली गई हैं. एंड नॉट ओनली दैट, यू सी विलियम फॉकनर जो है इसी पर्टिकुलर लाइन से अपनी एक नॉवल, अगर आपने देखा होगा, विलियम फॉकनर साउंड एंड फ्यूरी, द साउंड एंड द फ्यूरी करके उन्होंने एक नॉवल लिखी थी. ठीक है, सो विलियम फॉकनर की, ये इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है, विलियम फॉकनर wrote his novel inspired by this. What was the name of the novel? The Sound and the Fury. ठीक है, this is the name of the novel written by William Faulkner. Next up, option B. Next up, read the lines from the poem. Alas, what boots it with incessant care to tend the homely, slighted Shakespeare's trade and strictly meditate the thankless muse? Were it not better done as others use, to sport with Amaryllis in the shade or with the tangles of Naira's hair? Who are Amaryllis and Naira in the above extract from John Milton's Lycidas? Lycidas 1637. We've already done that. Lycidas was a pastoral elegy written for or dedicated to एडवर्ड किंग. एक ही फैक्ट इतनी बार रिपीट हो गया है कि अब क्वेश्चन पूछा जाए और आप गलत देख के आओ तो फिर देखना मुझे. ठीक है, द राइट आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन एनी विच वेज इज ऑप्शन सी. आई थिंक सी है इसका राइट आंसर, दैट एमरेलिस इज अ शेफर्डेस मेंशन्ड इन वर्जिल्स इक्लोग्स. ठीक है, नायरा अ निम्फ also appears in Virgil's eclogues. Right answer is option C. ठीक है, दोनों के दोनों वर्जिल के eclogues में अपेयर होती हैं. बोथ वर गॉडेसेस ऑफ लव. नो, दे वर नॉट. मैरिलिस इज अ शेफर्ड, शेफर्डेस. निम्फ जो है वर्जिनिटी को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए सॉर्ट ऑफ दे यूज्ड टू चेंज देयर शेप्स एंड एवरीथिंग. So she is a shepherdess and Naira minor character. No, not at all related. Both were one-time lovers of Lycidas, the dead shepherd. No. Right? Option C is the right answer to this particular question. Right? 1637 में आई थी ये. Next up. Moving on. What tone will be best suited for the following poem? The coming of wisdom with age. Through leaves are many. Through leaves are many. The root is one. Through all the lying days of my youth, I swayed my leaves in flowers in the sun. Now I may wither into the truth. The right answer to this question, क्योंकि tone की बात चल रही है, is option A, that is regret. The coming of wisdom with age, through leaves are many. The root is one. Through all the lying days of my youth, I swayed my leaves and flowers in the sun. Now I may wither into the truth. कि मैंने नहीं जिए अपनी जिंदगी के वो दिन जो थे, जो मुझे जैसे जीना चाहता था वैसे करने थे. ठीक है. So the lines, they are trying to reflect how the writer is धीरे 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 moving towards old age, and with old age wisdom is ultimately coming to him. Right. So it, like, the theme is of death. डीके की बात हो रही है, थोड़ा थोड़ा डेथ की बात हो रही है. राइट. सो हाउ हिज डेज, राइटर इज ट्राइंग टू टॉक अबाउट हाउ हिज डेज हैव पास्ड. हिज डेज, दे वर पास्ड इन ऑब्लिवियन. ठीक है. एंड थीम्स आपको थोड़ी किस में देखने के लिए मिल रही है? थीम्स देखने के लिए मिल रही है डेथ की, डीके की. ठीक है, डेथ की, डीके की. So now he will wither into the truth of life. You will just go. ठीक है, you will just go. So with W.B. Yeats, these are the lines from W.B. Yeats's. ये W.B. Yeats ने लिखी गई है. ठीक है. And with Yeats, we have seen, we have done the, already we have talked about how Sligo करके इनका जो है dialect इनके works में देखने के लिए मिलता है. We also get to see that he is one such person associated with founding the Irish Literary Theatre in the year 1899. Irish revival हुआ था, literary revival भी इसी year पे हुआ था. And this theatre was later on renamed as the Abbey Theatre in the year 1904. ठीक है, ये फैक्ट्स याद रखने हैं, 5 साल बाद ये हो गया था. ठीक है. नाउ मूविंग फॉरवर्ड to the next question that we have, Nicholas Nickleby firmly established Charles Dickens as a dominant novelist of his time, and the book was an unrivaled literacy phenomena. To celebrate the completion of the book, a painter noted that there had been nothing comparable to him since the day of Samuel Richardson. Who was the painter who has told and talked about these things? The right answer is option B here, David Wilkie. उन्होंने चार्ल्स डिकन्स के, निकोलस निकलबाई, अच्छा चार्ल्स डिकन्स की अब बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे. इट बिकम्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू ऑल टू ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड that with Dickens, please make sure when you guys go do your homework, you note down the names of main characters at least. Main characters इनके वर्क्स में मैच द फॉलोइंग में बहुत दफा have been asked, and also the opening lines of the important works that he has penned down. Right. So that is what we have here. Right. Then we move forward to the other writers. Leonard Woolf. Leonard Woolf was the husband of Virginia Woolf. ठीक है, ये husband थे Virginia Woolf के, and he wrote the novel The Village in the Jungle. The Village in the Jungle in the year 1913. ठीक है. Ernest Dawson short story writer थे. ठीक है, and novelist थे. He was associated with the decadent movement. डेथ एंड डीके वाली पोएट्री जब लिखी जा रही थी मेजरली. ठीक है, decadent movement, and moreover this was associated with excess of everything, कि सब लोग अपनी पोइट्री में एक्सट्रीम्स पे क्यों चले जाते हैं, आर्टिफिशियलिटी पे. ठीक है. कमिंग टू डेविड क्रुकशॉ. David Cruikshank was a French language के literary scholar. He wrote works such as the novel Albert Camus and Literature of Revolt, Albert Camus and the Literature of Revolt in the year 1960. ठीक है. सेकेंड वर्क इनका यही है. एक तो फर्स्ट हो गया ये. नंबर टू है द नॉवलिस्ट एज फिलोसोफर. in the year 1962. That's it. ये दोनों डेविड विंग की नहीं, ये दोनों इनके हैं, जॉन क्रूकशॉ के. डेविड विल्की was a painter, so he didn't write anything. ठीक है. Next up. Next question. Which of the following is not indebted to the Gothic genre? Not indebted to the Gothic genre. The right answer is option A, Tobias Smollett की. Roderick Random is not associated with being from the Gothic genre. The other novels we have already discussed as well in the classes. ठीक है, क्लासेस में डिस्कस करी हुई है दैट मैथ्यू लुई की जो मंक थी, इट वाज सच अ नॉवेल, सच अ हॉरर रिलेटेड, इतनी गॉथिक नॉवेल थी कि उसमें इतने ऐसे एस्पेक्ट्स थे हॉरर वाले कि लाइक व्हेन आई वाज रीडिंग इट, आई यूज्ड टू रीड इट रात को बैठ के 2-3 बजे, एंड आई कुड जस्ट फील द चिल्स on my body and everything, and it was such a novel that it became really very famous, and he gained so much fame that Matthew Louis खुद उनको ये टाइटल दे दिया गया कि मैथ्यू लुई द मंक, राइट. उनका पूरा नाम के साथ ही द मंक लगाने लग गए थे लोग. ठीक है. सो लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड. द एडवेंचर्स ऑफ द फुल टाइटल क्या है? द एडवेंचर्स ऑफ रॉडरिक रैंडम 1748 में पब्लिश हुई नॉवेल थी. ठीक है. Then we have William Beckford's Wethek 1782 में. ठीक है. 1782 में. Matthew Louis 1796 and Anne Radcliffe the Italian 1796. These are the other publication years of the other three are, yes, of course, the other three are the novels which are attributed to the Gothic genre. So these are Gothic novels along with Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto. ठीक है. Option A is the right answer. Next question. Jonathan Swift arrived in London on 17th June, confronted a rapidly changing world and a new Tory ministry. His reactions to the world are vividly recorded in his journal Stella, a series of letters addressed to option B and C, Esther Johnson and Rebecca Dingley. So option B and C, option A is the right answer. The full title of the journal is A Journal to Stella. A Journal to Stella is the full title that we get to see here, written by Jonathan Swift here. जो कि एस्थर जॉनसन और रेबेका डिंगली was a friend. She was a friend of एस्थर जॉनसन की फ्रेंड थी रेबेका डिंगली, राइट. एंड 1710 to 1713 तक ये लेटर्स जो थे they were penned down. And Esther Johnson is Stella, ठीक है, to whom Swift would have married. So she was the lover of Swift. And how many letters do we get to see here? We have 65 letters. 65 चिट्ठियां जो थी, those were written here. Right? Note down. We have some other important works by Swift. Swift के works, Swift's works. We have the names such as A Modest Proposal, A Modest Proposal, A Tale of a Tub, A Tale of a Tub. We have Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver's Travels has been also आपको इंडियन सिनेमा में भी देखने के लिए मिली होगी, बुद्ध मूवी, जजंतरम मंत्रम, ठीक है, ड्रेपियर्स लेटर्स, ये कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क्स हैं. Now, when we talk about the tale, the Modest Proposal, Jonathan Swift was one such writer who was from Ireland, ठीक है, and Irish लोग जो थे, when Ireland became a part of England, the Irish people were not majorly liked by the English people. So what used to happen was that of course Ireland जो था वो बहुत सारा भूखमरी के साथ जूझ रहा था, so on and so forth. So its economy was not doing that well. So Modest Proposal में Swift ने एक satire कसी है that the बच्चे जो हैं, Irish बच्चे जो हैं, they should be proven beneficial to their parents by being the meals of the English people, right? So टेल ऑफ द टब में 4 रिलीजन्स, कैथोलिसिज्म की बात करी गई है, देन वी हैव प्रोटेस्टेंटिज्म एटसेट्रा. 4 बेटों के थ्रू बात करी गई है, जो कि इन अ वेरी सिंबॉलिक मैनर दैट देयर इज दिस वन फादर हु गिव्स हिज बच्चों को एक कोट देते हैं, और वो कोट में अलग अलग टुकड़े टुकड़ों को अलग अलग क्रिश्चियनिटी की ब्रांचेस के साथ जोड़ के दिखाया. गलिवर्स ट्रैवल्स एंड ड्रेपियर्स लेटर्स, यू गाइस कैन रीड मोर अबाउट दैट एज वेल, ठीक है. पर इन दोनों की समरी जरूर, इन तीनों की समरी जरूर करिएगा, मॉडेस्ट प्रपोजल एंड एवरीथिंग, ठीक है. चलिए आगे मूव करते हैं टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. इन दिस नॉवल बाय ग्राहम ग्रीन, अ डबल एजेंट uses classic works of fictions to encode secret information. He puts Clarissa Harlow back in the bookcase is the first clue to his treachery. Then he draws on War and Peace and the way we live now as matrices for secretly transmitting information, right? Who do we have as the answer to, like, what is the novel? You have to find the answer. The right answer is option C here, the human factor. The human factor. अच्छा, ग्राहम ग्रीन के बारे में एक चीज मैं बता देती हूँ, which is really very interesting. He himself was one such person who was working as a spy. ठीक है, ये अंडर कवर एज अ स्पाई फॉर M16 के लिए काम कर रहे थे ये, ठीक है, ब्रिटेन में. he himself was associated with that, right? So ये नॉवल में भी हमें ये M16 एजेंट ही देखने के लिए मिलते हैं. his name is Maurice Castle, right? Maurice Castle, right? Then we have the man within. आगे the man within, note down the years and everything. The Man Within 1929 में आया था ये particular work. This is the debut novel of Graham Greene. Debut novel of Graham Greene, ठीक है. Then we have, and the title from this, the title has been taken from Thomas Brown's work Religio Medici, The Religion of the Doctor, ठीक है. टाइटल the man within वहीं से लिया गया. There's another man within me that's angry with me. ये लाइंस थॉमस ब्राउन के वर्क रिलीजियो मेडिची में आती हैं. और मैन इन हवाना 1958, ठीक है. सेटिंग इसकी है क्यूबा में इट इज सेट. that's what you want to know. क्यूबन मिसाइल क्राइसिस हुआ था ड्यूरिंग द वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 आई थिंक, ठीक है. सो उसके बारे में है. देन वी हैव द ह्यूमन फैक्टर बता दिया आपको. इट्स एन एस्पिनेज नॉवल. एस्पियोनेज मीन्स स्पाई वाली नॉवल है, ठीक है. 1978 में दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क केम. देन वी हैव द कॉन्फिडेंशियल एजेंट 1939, ठीक है. इट इज अ थ्रिलर नॉवल. It is a thriller novel. That's it. Graham Greene is an important writer from the net perspective. You can read the summaries of his works as well. ये सारे works की summaries आप पढ़ सकते हैं in your homework as well. ठीक है. Next up, In an ode, William Collins lamented the passing of a contemporary poet. The ode began with the line, "In yonder grave a druid lies." Name the poet whose passing कॉलिन जो है उनको लेमेंट कर रहे हैं, that in yonder grave a druid lies. The right answer is James Thomson. James Thomson very famously wrote a poem which was known as The Seasons. You guys know this particular, you should know the poem The Seasons here. Option A is the right answer to this particular question. The name of the ode by William Collins, पूरा नाम क्या है ode का? Ode on the death of Mr. Thompson, and it was written in the year 1749 by William Collins. 1749 में लिखी गई थी, ठीक है. And James Thomson was a Scottish poet, ठीक है, was a Scottish poet. And yeah, that's it. Then we have William Cooper, writer, Alexander Pope, Rape of the Lock, etc. Thomas Gray, an elegy written in a country churchyard. You can just Google important quotes from elegy written in a country churchyard. That's it. ठीक है, और इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा you can read about that. Right? James Thomson is the right answer, option A. Next up, in Frances Burney's novel Evelina, the eponymous heroine. Eponymous का मतलब क्या होता है? Eponymous का मतलब होता है on whom the novel has been named, a character on whom the novel has been named. ये आपके 2024 अगस्त में जो पेपर हुआ था on 21st August, उसमें पूछा गया था question, the analysis that we have on YouTube. ठीक है, shift 1. Heroine comes out in society in 2 locations. What are the 2 locations that are mentioned there? Option D is the right answer. That is Leeds and London. These are the 2 locations. अच्छा, Frances Burney के works का Evelina, Cecilia, Camellia. These are the 3 works which are important. Also, one thing which becomes important with regards to her works are कि पेपर में इनके ना subtitles match the following में आए हुए हैं. So note down the names of the works. In the chronological way ही लिखेंगे Evelina or the history of a young lady's entrance into the world, 1778. This is the first one, ठीक है. Then we have Cecilia or the memoirs of an heiress, HEIR, heiress, 1782. Then Camilla or a picture of youth, 1796. And the fourth one, the wanderer or female difficulties. बच्चे 4 के 4 क्वेश्चन आपके 4 के 4 ऐसे भी पूछे गए हैं, सेपरेटली भी पूछा गया कि एवेलिना का सबटाइटल क्या है, कमिला का क्या है. मैच द फॉलोइंग में दीज 4 वर देयर एंड इन द प्रीवियस क्वेश्चंस, ठीक है. So from here we are getting access to numerous questions which can be formed from Frances Burney. Right? Which of the following lines by Shakespeare is repeated several times in Woolf's novel Mrs. Dalloway? Fear no more the heat of sun, nor the furious winter's rages. Right answer is option B. These are the lines which occur from Shakespeare's play Cymbeline. Shakespeare की play Cymbeline से आती हैं ये lines. अच्छा, what and who is the one uttering these lines or reading these lines? हमारी जो major, हमारी जो protagonist है Clarissa जो है, Clarissa is the character, the main character, the protagonist. She reads these lines. कि डेथ जो है इनएविटेबल है, शी इज ट्राइंग टू रीड इट दैट यस ऑफ कोर्स डेथ इज अ रिलीज फ्रॉम द हार्ड स्ट्रगल ऑफ लाइफ. डेथ जो है इज अ रिलीज फ्रॉम द हार्ड स्ट्रगल of life. You remember Virginia Woolf was writing during the time of World Wars. ठीक है, World Wars के time पे she was writing, and we see that in this particular work as well we see different characters, such as Septimus जो है character है who has had the war shock. He is a veteran of the army and उसको ना war का शौक लगा हुआ है कि war कैसी होती है. He just trembles and he is just he is taken aback by that thing. And basically क्लारिसा जब इन लाइंस को पढ़ती है शी थिंक्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड वॉर, दैट हाउ ईच एंड एवरी पर्सन, छोटे से छोटा इंसान बड़े से बड़ा इंसान, हैज बीन अफेक्टेड बाय वॉर. एंड विद दैट व्हाट हैज हैपेंड दैट यस ऑफ कोर्स वॉर के साथ लोग अपने आप को बड़ा दिखाते हैं कि नहीं हमको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, कुछ नहीं हुआ, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, बट उनको फर्क पड़ता है, राइट. सो दीज आर certain important information with regards to the work named Mrs. Dalloway, right? Just wait for a second, bachche, right? So yeah, if music be the food of love, ये 12th night शेक्सपियर की है, उसमें अकर करता है. Then we have those are the pearl, the tempest by Shakespeare, and there's a tide in the affairs of man, Julius Caesar. These were the works written by Shakespeare which have these particular lines, right? Let's move forward to the next question. The title of Sir Thomas Browne's famous treatise, Religio Medici, means, I just uttered the words when we were trying to talk about this particular man within Thomas Browne's Religio Medici, doctor, ठीक है, religion of a doctor. Option A is the right answer to this question. Who is the writer of the following lines? To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour, right? What is the right answer to this question? What is the right answer to this question? The right answer to this question is option B, that is William Blake. William Blake की ये lines आती हैं in a poem named Auguries of Innocence. Auguries of Innocence. These lines are uttered by the pre-romantic poet William Blake, right? और इनको the Pickering manuscript भी बोला जाता है, known as the Pickering manuscript, right? You can note these things down. The Pickering manuscript, that's it. 1803 के आसपास लिखी हुई लगती हैं ये, ठीक है. Next, in Women in Love, what is Winfried Speckeney's dog called? The Winfried Speckeney's dog is called as option B, Lulu, ठीक है. एंड इसी तरीके से 2-3 क्वेश्चंस आपके डॉग्स पे आए हुए हैं. आई थिंक बिलिंडा का जो डॉग था इन रेप ऑफ द लॉग, ही वाज नेम्ड शॉक, ठीक है, ही वाज नेम्ड शॉक. सो ऑल दीज, देन वी हैड दिस बिलिंडा का जो डॉग था, बिलिंडाज डॉग इन rape of the log was given the name shock. And Virginia Woolf एक biography लिखती हैं on this Elizabeth Barrett Browning, ठीक है. तो Elizabeth Barrett Browning का डॉग जो था उसका नाम था फ्लश, ठीक है, फ्लश नाम था उसका, ठीक है. सो ये क्वेश्चंस भी ऐसे आ जाते हैं. Women in Love, we have already discussed about that this was a work in 1920 which was a sequel to The Rainbow, and Rainbow कब लिखा गया था? In the year 1915. ठीक है, in the year 1915. And that's it. With this, we are done with the questions that were supposed to be covered by all of us, right? I hope things are clear. Are the things clear with all of you? Because at max I've tried and put the efforts to write as descriptive as possible to find information and discuss it in the class. So कुछ चीजें मैंने आपको क्लास में बताई हैं that yes, of course, you all are supposed to read the summaries of the important works. Please do give it a read, because from here we cannot do the summaries of the works. कुछ चीजें background, जैसे मैंने आज आप लोगों को लोलार्ड्स का बता दिया, कई चीजों का background जो है it becomes important. So try to make sure that you are giving yourself enough time in that particular time spare to at least read about the summaries, because यहाँ पे तो majorly चीजें cover हो रही हैं, लेकिन some effort from your end for the practice as well is required, right? This way it will be a full circle जहाँ पे आपको 360 degree जो है एनालिसिस तो मिल ही रहा है, but the practice which you are lacking from your end, I will give you the information, but how to make the most of the information I'm giving, even uttering the information that read the summaries, will only be complete if you guys will be consistently putting the effort. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day. Bye-bye.